Now in your third section of your trig graph exploration, the level 3 section, they're going to not only adjust the midline and the possibly the amplitude, but they will also adjust the period or the length of the cycle as well. Now notice that this is a standard sine graph that starts at 0, but do notice they have this labeled differently because that graph goes all the way from 2 pi. That's just showing one cycle, one period of your graph. The first thing we need to deal with is the midline like usual. So it looks like this dotted line is centered around -2. So I generally try it one piece at a time. Just try the -2 and try it and see, does that get me centered in the correct place? And it does. Now the next thing is the amplitude correct? And it does look like that both the dotted line and my solid line I go up 1 from -2. They have the same maximum and minimum, so I think the amplitude is good. The issue I'm having now is with the length of the cycle. And basically, I need to compress this graph vertically. Remember, multiplying by a number there will compress it. So I could just guess and try a few things. You notice trying a 2 compresses it pretty okay. I could say, hey, that didn't quite do it. Let's try something else. I could try a 3. And that gets it. That's one way to do it. I'll show you on the next example how you can avoid guessing, but I did want to show you on this one that you could just try different numbers and gradually compress your graph together until you got it to match, or if it was stretched too far, you could try a fractional number because multiplying by a fraction would stretch it out. Okay, this one has a lot going on. For starters, I can tell you that it's definite that they've slid this graph down to make the static graph. To find out exactly how far, I could always use my minimum and my maximum, or I could just try different numbers. With a maximum of 1 and a minimum of -5, the number in between 1 and -5 would be -2, I believe. So we're going to go ahead and try a -2. I added those numbers together and divided by 2 to give that -2. You notice that that seems to get me balanced right in the middle of that dotted line. The next thing to worry about is your amplitude. So if my midline really is -2, I'm saying how far do I go above -2 to get my maximum of 1? Well, that looks like a 3. And remember, your amplitude goes in front because it stretches the graph vertically, and a number in front always stretches the graph vertically, just like a number added or subtracted at the end always shifts it vertically, regardless of what type of function it is. Now it's clear that I have the correct maximum and minimum for both graphs. They both have a maximum of 1 and a minimum of -5, both the solid graph that I have right now and the dotted graph I'm shooting for. So that lets me know that my amplitude and my midline are correct. Now I can go ahead, once I have that much correct, go ahead and start working on the period. And I am going to tell you this is going to be a number bigger than 1 because it's been squished or compressed together, and multiplying inside the parenthesis compresses it. Remember, things inside the parenthesis work backwards of what you would see, and that gives you an idea of what it would be. You can keep guessing different numbers, but I'll show you a way you can slow that down if you want. If you wanted to not have to guess and know right what the number is, you can always look at this dotted line and say, okay, one cycle of this dotted graph goes from there to there. So it goes from 0 to pi/3. So the length of my period is pi/3 minus 0, or my period is pi/3. Now remember, your b value there, what goes in front, is basically 2 pi divided by pi/3. So what that means is if I wanted to simplify this, I could put that in Desmos, or I don't even have to put in the pi's, they cancel. That's the same thing as 2 divided by 1/3. Or you might recall that dividing by 1/3 is the same thing as multiplying by 3, so I bet you my answer is going to be a 6. Once again, if you don't like doing that, you can just keep trying different numbers until you eventually get the one that works, but that will show you how to get there. And the answers to these are all either whole numbers or they're fractions over 1, like under a 1, like 1/2, 1/3, or so on. So if you don't want to calculate the period that way on these, you can get them right without it, but it's a good habit to go ahead and try it because you will be needing to learn how to do that in the future.